welcome to a special edition of Planet Waves TV. My name is Eric Francis Coppolino, the author of the Planet Waves horoscope and other things, and host of Planet Waves FM. Good to be with you. I'm here with a little more news and information about the chart for the Libra solstice, which is set for tomorrow. Well, when I'm relative to where I'm standing, at 9:30 in the morning Eastern Daylight Time. I have in the previous video I have gone over this version of the Equinox chart, which highlights the Grand Cross that's involved here. Some of them are subtle points. Most astrologers will not be looking at the points in Cancer or in early Capricorn, and will mainly see the Sun entering Libra, and then in a week or so it'll make an exact opposition to Chiron. I'm using a bunch of subtle planets: Pholus, Quaoar, Ixion, Hades, Kronos, and Logos. None of them are asteroids, so that is explained in the probably immediately prior thing on YouTube, or we'll link to it somewhere. All right, so a couple of other things I wanted to mention about this chart that are really extraordinary. One of them is the, how do we have that? The exact opposition. I wasn't planning on starting with this, but I'm going to do it because I just wrote about it in the Monday night edition of Planet Waves. One of them is the exact opposition of Mercury and Eris. Eris is one of the slowest planets in existence, something like 551-year orbit. Mercury is the fastest, so we do have something like an 84-day orbit or something. So we have the planet of mind and communication, and to a great extent technology, since so many of us are so surrounded in this technosphere and immersed so deeply in digital, and Mercury is kind of the working end of that. And Eris, the planet that is that is the very emblem of the chaos of our times. This includes the chaos in society. It includes the identity chaos that we're going through so often, and this basically destabilization of everything. At the moment, it seems like everything has been destabilized, and up and down have no meaning, left and right, inside and outside, truth and lies. It happened historically. It didn't happen historically. It's meaningful. It's meaningless. That is a special condition. That is not any kind of an ordinary condition of the mind. Normally, we're much more grounded, and we're able to distinguish past, present, and future. We're able to learn from what happened, even though humans don't do that very often. Now it would seem like all of that has been thrown completely inside out and upside down. And it's very difficult to get any kind of a grip in the context of all of this chaos. And Mercury, the planet of the mind, the planet of sentience, the mind of the senses, the consciousness of creatures, as Lord Krishna said, is exactly opposite Eris, which is the very emblem, the astrological provocateur of all of this chaos, and it is induced by electricity. This is a long story, but Eris in Aries is the story of electrical communication technology, and it goes back to the late 1920s. There are a lot of people struggling in a lot of pain right now, and I believe that there is a kind of a quest going on to keep hold of a quest going on to keep hold of our humanity, and this quest is an inner search. It has to be an inner search. There's no way it can be an outer search at this point. And in fact, part of our whole problem is that so much of what was previously inside has been thrust outside of us and is no longer where it belongs, and therefore no longer accessible where it belongs. We may remember where it was, and then have lost the internal resources to dial it in, to dial ourselves in. And what we get here is a stunning, profound case of alienation from ourselves of a kind that I think has never been seen before in the history of society, because of the fact that it has been so heavily induced, first by electricity and then by total over-immersion in digital consciousness. In my article on Monday about transhumanism, I talk about this, and I give some of the history of the onslaught of the internet and how it just kind of went from being a thing that we went to. Remember that? You go to it, you dial it and call in, to a thing that was on all the time, to a thing that now is integrated in every facet of our lives, that follows us everywhere, that's tracking our position on our phones and our gadgets and our cars, and on even the buses. Of course, the buses and the trains that we're riding on. Our location is location, and many other biometric facts are being monitored constantly. And this is a very different world, and it's leading to a very different state of mind than we've ever experienced. And the problem is that the psychic chaos is so intense that it conceals itself, and it is difficult to even remember anything but this, to remember a time when things were more grounded. And the generation born starting in the early 1990s might have absolutely no concept of what this means, since they grew up under the thrall of what I call full digital conditions. And so we're faced with many challenges here, and we're faced with many threats, I think, as well. Threats to our humanity. The concept of transhumanism is the morphing of the human realm with our AI realm. And AI, augmented and enhanced reality, AER, I believe it's called. This is happening. There are, I saw Zuckerberg at some point last year give a presentation and say that Facebook had these things available, these little collar cuffs you could plug into your computer that could essentially read your mind. I don't know how well they do it, but the thing with technology is it generally gets better. And he was saying they're shipping these. And so if they are shipping mind-reading technology as a retail product, you know that it is much more advanced in the laboratories of Google and the government, and you know there are people right now who are drafting plans for what to do with this stuff. But it goes even further than carrying computers everywhere or attaching ourselves to them. But now the thing that is finally getting some discussion is being injected with robots, nanoparticles. And this is being packaged as the COVID vaccine, right? This is really crazy. I might think, oh, come on. They're never going to do this, except for one thing. I feel like I'm the only person on Earth who remembers seeing the cover of Wired magazine sometime around 02, 03, 04 in there. I think I was living on the West Coast in Seattle prior to my excursions in Europe. And on the cover was a beaker of this stuff, this injectable nanotechnology plasma. Okay, 15, 16 years ago, right? So if we know that if it existed and was considered a viable idea 15, 16 years ago, you know that it has come a long way since then. And I think this is something that we must monitor, discuss, debate, and seek to understand, and not just like debate whether or not we want 5G or whether we think it hurts people. But now the question is, injectable nanoparticles that could basically put every person onto the Internet of Things. So, that all said, there is an aspect in this chart that is particularly beautiful. I've got a little enlarged portion here so we can see from the ascendant right around to the 10th house. It's a rising sign, Scorpio, yeah, so it's the 10th house. And it is the conjunction of Vesta and Venus. I'll make this super big so you can see it. Vesta here, the fourth asteroid, the brightest asteroid ever discovered, and Venus, the brightest planet besides a luminary sun or moon, which are not planets. And it is exact in 19 degrees of Leo. So anything over 18 becomes 19. So 1803, 1807 has entered into the 19th degree. It's kind of like centuries work. We're in the 21st century, but it's 2020. So it's the same basic idea. And first of all, just to get this out of the way, this conjunction is in the exact degree of the total solar eclipse of August 11th, 1999. Eclipses can have very, very long duration of influence, and that particular eclipse, the Grand Cross total solar eclipse that maybe those of you who are reading Planet Waves in the late 1990s, I started writing about that in 1998 and concluded in 1999. Those of you who are reading Planet Waves might remember articles like Thinking of You on Judgment Day and my Burning Man series from the summer of 1999, all focused on this eclipse, and the eclipse is still active. The interesting and you can tell it is because interesting things show up in the eclipse degree at interesting times. So, for example, it's the Venus return of the 9/11 chart. That happens every year, but it just happens to be that Venus was in that degree on 9/11 chart was Libra rising, and Venus was in that degree, as if like the country fell into a pothole, which it basically did. What is interesting about this Equinox chart is that the ruler of the event, because this is a Libra event, Venus is conjunct the asteroid Vesta. The asteroid Vesta it has a number of really deep permutations. It is said to be the asteroid about like on the most superficial level of substituting projects for people. So it's people who like are always staying late at work, staying away from their homes, never have time to go out, never have time to socialize or do anything that is considered part of the signature of Vesta. But that is only the most superficial level, because really straight away we have the imagery of a chevron burning, a pot of oil burning. We have the imagery of a flame and of tending the flame. And when we consider the nature of a flame burning in us, that is the creative and the sexual flame. Vesta pertains to the Vestal virgins, who were women selected, very carefully selected, and then who served the Republic of Rome for a term of approximately 37 to 40 years, and were the kind of high priestesses of the city. They were exalted people in their time, and they had power and a privilege that was extremely rare for women, though they reported directly to the then equivalent of the Pope, and notably, they were under a vow of chastity for the entire duration of their service as Vestal virgins, and so this creates some interesting ideas, and it brings in the concept of sexuality through. In a sense, excluding sexuality, though when excluded, sexuality can be even more present, because you've kind of created an organizational structure where you can look at it more closely and experience it more closely when not experiencing being inundated by it in relationships. So it creates that kind of thing. I believe that the concept of a nun comes from the concept of a Vestal virgin. The Vestal priest temple was absorbed into the Roman Catholic Church at a certain time. I forget which century. And I believe the entire concept of a nun comes from this. And one interesting thing about nuns is that they are even encouraged not to have intimate social relationships with one another. Forget about just sex. Nuns are encouraged not to be close to people. No, I don't know if this has changed, but it was a thing in Catholicism for a long time, and perhaps in the modern world. But the underlying message is there. Your relationship is supposed to be to God. I do not know what the story was with the Vestal virgins, or if there was. I have never read there was any prohibition on this. What the conjunction of Venus in particular, this goddess of love and sexuality, conjunct Vesta on the equinox gives us is this highlights Vesta, and it brings the concept of sexuality, female in particular, or the inner feminine, the indwelling feminine, and Vesta, and it brings them into the same idea, because that's what a conjunction does. It brings them into the same idea. And to me, this is a commentary on the need for sexual healing in our world and in our society. This is not something that it is easy to talk about. There have in recent times been a lot of, let's say, public expositions of wounding, but public expositions of wounding have nothing to do with the healing process. You can say that they do, but it doesn't mean that they do, and I think can be extremely damaging. Fortunately, we're not in that stage anymore, and this leaves us needing to heal and tend to our sexual injuries. But doing so in a world where there is not very much opportunity to do that. There's not many people with whom you can even have the conversation about your deepest and most intimate sexual experiences, sexual needs, negative and positive, and to be fully real about the experience of sexuality as part of the growth process. Usually sexuality is invested into one-on-one relationships and is very rarely discussed. The many people together in relationships have no concept of their partner's background, and often for good reasons, because it can be so dangerous to share anything. However, this needs to happen. We're facing a global crisis. We are facing a crisis of self-awareness. And humanity is in a lot of trouble right now. And part of why we are in trouble is that part of the whole con game to get us out of our humanity and to slip into authoritarian models of rulership, whether we're talking about the church, the family, or the government, has always involved, at least under patriarchy, conning people out of their sexuality. I don't know how this was in the old religion prior to sexuality, in the fabled time of the goddess. There's no written record of that, and I have no, let's say, provable documentation. However, we do know that when we went from the time of divinity figures being female goddess figures spreading their yoni open, whether depicted in stone carvings or in relief sculptures or paintings later on, we went from that to somebody nailed to a cross. There is a denial of female sexuality, and the whole concept of patriarchy is in and of itself, though it is not really ever honestly said to be this way, the whole concept is about the denial of female sexuality, the enslavement of female sexuality, the subordination of female sexuality through all of these models, all of which come down to conditioning based on shame. Church conditioning, religious, that's church, governmental conditioning, they throw a lot of disease into the mix too. There's always some new disease that you're going to get from having sex, and you're never going to be happy. And there was 1 week during COVID where all these people were coming out with advice that you should fuck through the wall. And family conditioning also, again, shame. Hide that. Don't say that. Don't be revealed that. If someone, especially like, for example, in Italian culture, has a daughter, there becomes this universal fear of the penises that all want to get into her, which is denying her prerogative. Sex is not taught anymore. That I know of, there are no books, certainly not best-selling books. Maybe occasionally a book comes out. And all of this is held up by shame. It is crucial to understand this. It is held together by shame, as are all of the strictures in society. And at the core of the whole business, the nub of the whole business, is a stricture on sexuality, and then on all forms of bodily experience, rooted right there, that is based on shame. This is the reason for the tantric teaching that when you are exploring sexually and you encounter embarrassment, which is a very subtle form of shame, or the anticipation of shame, that you go toward it and treat embarrassment as a veil that conceals all of the deeper treasures, the deeper pleasures, the deeper self-understanding, the deeper self. Because Vesta is associated with celibacy, with abstinence. Celibacy used to have a different name. It used to mean not married. Till very recently, the word celibate meant not married, and therefore could be construed as promiscuity. So that's an important thing to remember in the history of this word, which is on some level still alive. But the Vestal priestesses were chaste. They were not as in like pursued by penises, but they were chaste. They did not have sex, and that was the kind of source of their power. That implies the sexual connection to oneself. Again, that I know of, nothing is recorded about the masturbation practices of the Vestal virgins. But at that time in Greek history, there was no special category for masturbation. That comes in not only under Christendom, but very recently in the very early 18th century. So this whole frenzy about the evil of masturbation is a thing that's only a few hundred years old. Incredibly, and that is shrouded in incredible amounts of shame, and if you borrow my idea and give this a little try, that the shame that binds us away from sexual experiences and makes sexual experiences bad is also the shame that prevents us from asserting ourselves, being creative, doing what we want, celebrating our existence, having passion for life. And my message to you, brought to you by the Venus-Vesta conjunction, is to consider that the sexual healing process, first of all, has to begin with you. It is not about sexual healing in a relationship in the first instance, except the relationship with yourself. And so that may clarify some misunderstandings about sexual healing. It is unlikely to happen in a relationship until one person in the relationship has gone through a deep spiritual and psychological process, including the emotional realm, that has included penetrating through some of this shame body that that seems to encase our natural being. A long time ago, an author in the Mountain Astrologer did a brilliant essay connecting Vesta to shame. I wish I knew this person's name. This had to be in maybe it was like around 2000. And I only, because I kind of have a vision of the room I was reading it in, which is the room I was in about 2000. And this set me, this helped me connect this tantric concept of addressing questions of shame with the whole process of Vesta, and it works quite well. And the message I have for you is that in your sexual healing process, which is going to begin as an inner process, possibly a guided inner process, possibly a supported inner process by whether it's me saying these words to you or you accessing my other audio and literature, or a book you've read, or a teacher who was able to mention something. In the beginning, the journey must be an inner journey, and that will take you out of the context of the relationship or relationships that you are in, and will promptly confront you with layers of shame that you are casting off as we embark on healing from what is commonly referred to as 5,000 years of patriarchy. Well, what's that about? A lot of it is based in the shaming of sexuality, and so to go through those layers of control and to find your way into your sacred flame, you're going to need to go through that. And I would just suggest that you first of all take pleasure in doing so. It is boldly adventurous. You may find yourself thinking things that are wholly inappropriate, that are not politically correct, and that you would never tell your mother or your father, or would never bring up in gender studies class. But your mind is going to go to those places because there has been so much packed down under the surface, and so be aware of that. Embrace that possibility, and remember that as you move deeper into that, you're going to access the deeper layers of yourself. So the embarrassment is a veil. It is a mere scrim that can be brushed apart as you make the journey inward toward your vital force energy. And your vital force energy contains much in the way of the pleasure of existence, the power of orgasm, including the power of birth contractions. They're very closely related. And your connection to your true intelligence and your connection to your vital force energy. So I'm going to hold this chart up one more time just so you get a look at this beautiful conjunction right here at, where is this? At 18 and change of Leo. This magnificent conjunction right on the autumnal equinox. A lot of other good stuff going on in this chart. Please catch my essay on transhumanism if you can. We're going to put it on Planet Waves front page, planetwaves.net. A lot of good stuff going on there. Please explore those tabs. Planet Waves FM is my personal favorite. All right. Thank you for listening. Please add some comments below. I'd be happy to have this discussion. And anyone who wishes to email me personally may do so at efc@bookofblue, one word, .com. efc@bookofblue.com. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Kate, for putting this video together. And bye for now.